Hello again there folks, welcome back to my channel. I'm the Lone Adventurer. Thank you very much for stumbling your way upon this video and joining me for another adventure. Now I'm going to be starting a new, probably longer series of longer videos today, and I'm going to be playing through a game book. Now I've covered a couple of game books on the channel. I have very recently played through some of What Lies Beneath, which is quite a recent little game book that features art from Jason Glover and is designed and written by Chris Scafidi. And in the past I've also done a playthrough of another game in the Fighting Fantasy series. That one was Talisman of Death, and I've also featured a game book called The Castle of Blackwood Moor. So really that's 3 game books over a series of a couple of years at this point, and I keep wanting to get another game book to the channel. And the main reason why I want to get another game book to the channel is because I find the medium to be very interesting. There's a certain feeling to playing through a game book. It's not just nostalgia and making you feel like a kid again. There's something else, like the sense of discovery and emergent narrative that you get in a game book, going into a world that someone has carefully thought through and designed. Yes, obviously it's more restrictive than other forms of solo gaming, but I like exploring someone else's creation, and I think possibly the game book is one of the better ways to present a solo player with a carefully thought through and cohesive world and narrative, or something like that anyway. Basically, I like game books and I want to play one of my collection extensively, and the best way for me to do that is to at least initially play it on the channel. So what game book are we going to be playing? Obviously you know already because you will have seen the thumbnail and the description and whatnot, but I just wanted to show you some of the game books that I'm not going to be playing. It's not going to be one of the Fighting Fantasy series, the legendary game books from Steve Jackson and Ian Livingstone. I've got a few of these, all bought relatively recently. I did have some as a child, I think, but they disappeared to a car boot sale or something during the ill-advised period of my life where I thought that maybe I didn't need to hold on to such things. So I have played one of these already, but I wanted to play something perhaps a little bit more sophisticated, a little bit more modern perhaps. So I've got a couple of books in the Destiny Quest series. These look super interesting. Definitely want to play one of them on the channel at some point, but it's not going to be today. I've got all of the books in the Fabled Land series. This is book 3. I had books 1 and 2 as a child, and then like a fool got rid of them. I rebought the first one as a print-on-demand book, which is fine. The print-on-demand books are absolutely fine, but I was a little bit heartbroken that they didn't feel and look the same as the original releases. This is one of the original releases. We have these fold-out covers at the front and the back, the maps and the character stuff. And so I did go ahead and source myself at some moderate cost the original 6 books in this series as original editions. So I've got those. I'd like to bring those to the channel. The reason why I'm hesitant about bringing them to the channel is that the onus is to quite a degree on the player to make sure they don't flounder around. And I have in the past had a go at playing these books and floundered around a little bit. You've got to have some patience and some focus. If you get quests or missions or objectives, you have to make sure you follow through on those things and go to the right places. It can also be a little bit of a brutal game in my experience. You know, you're playing this character across multiple books. I should have said these books are interconnected in that from a particular entry, if you're reading entry 294, one of the options might be to go to entry 150 in a different book. So they're completely interconnected, which is very cool. But all those things combine to make them perhaps a little overwhelming from time to time. I will make it happen, I'm sure, especially if there is outcry in the comments below. We'll see what we can do. So that's not what we're going to play today, but what we're going to play today is a game that structurally is reminiscent of Fabled Lands. We're going to play Steam Highwayman, Fog and Ambuscade. So let me just shift that up a little bit so we can definitely see the name of the author, Martin Nauch. And this is another series of books. There's currently 3 books in the series, and they are like Fabled Lands in that you can move between the books from particular places. So if you find yourself in a location near the edge of the map, you might find that moving in a particular direction requires you to go to a different book. Now, I've only got this one book at the moment, but I don't think that matters too much. There's clearly enough content in here to keep me quiet for quite some time. And whenever you're given the option to move to a different book, you're also given other options that mean you will be staying within the narrative included in this book. Now, as you can see from the cover, the setting of this is a little different compared to other things you might find on this channel. Steam Highwayman is set in a steampunk world. My understanding of steampunk is it's sort of a mash between an historical setting, so Victorian or possibly later, technology which has seemingly developed from that Victorian technology in a different way to our modern technology. So everything is steam powered. So the gas engine or the petrol engine, I don't know much about vehicles and things. The vehicles as we know them never really developed, and the overriding technology that powers modern society is steam based. So it's kind of a funky, different setting that's got its own aesthetic, and many people are very enthusiastic about the steampunk setting. There's whole worlds of novels and books and role-playing games and other stuff that is set in a steampunk world. Like I said, as a setting, it's different to what we tend to cover on the channel, but I thought that might be a good thing. Something a little bit different. So let's take a look at the back, shall we, and read the back. Might be a good place to start. You close the regulator and bring the heavy Ferguson Velosteam to a halt. From the crest of the hill you can see the lumbering freight wagons and the steam carriages of the gentry making their way through the rain-lashed night. Little do they expect the sudden and terrible assault of the Steam Highwayman. What next for you? A midnight assault on the nobles travelling the Bath Road? Will you rescue the weathered brewery from closure? Or punish the wicked Colonel Snappet? Will you ally with the Compact for Workers' Equality? Or find work protecting haulers on the Wickham Run? Is trading cargo on the Thames more than a profitable sideline? Can you make your way to the glorious Clivenden Ball or win the Spencer Cup? Steam Highwayman is an open-world adventure gamebook series in which you, the reader, must choose your path through an alternate steampunk history. With a pair of dice and a pencil, you can track your adventure through an England that never was, discovering secrets, solving quests, rescuing those in need, and punishing those who deserve vengeance. The Midnight Road Calls. There you go. So I find the idea of this setting quite exciting. I recently watched a new show on Apple TV. I'm momentarily forgetting the name of it. Just checked. The show is called The Completely Made Up Adventures of Dick Turpin, and it stars Noel Fielding in the title role. That's Noel Fielding from The Mighty Boosh, and all manner of fantastic British comedians and actors. And that is set in an albeit slightly ridiculous version, very ridiculous version, of actual history, with some fantastical elements as well. And that is fresh in my mind, and possibly that made me more inclined to get Steam Highwayman off the shelf on this occasion. So this is the game. This is what we're going to play. So what we have here is a game book where the mechanics are pretty straightforward. Not as straightforward as something like the fighting fantasy books, but obviously leans quite heavily on some of the mechanics designed, I think, originally by the Fabled Lands designers. So in addition to having some stats, doing some dice rolls, things like that, some basic combat mechanics, the other things that you need to consider when playing these games is tick boxes. Tick boxes appear on some entries. Let's see if we can find one without looking too closely at what the entries are. There's a lot of entries in this book. So 99 has got 3 little tick boxes. Every time you go to 99, you'll be compelled to tick one of those tick boxes, and then once they're all ticked, going to 99 will result in something different happening. So tick boxes are the way that the game tracks whether you've been to a place before and adjusting what happens next time you go there. So they're very straightforward as a mechanic, but obviously quite effective because they are still used by some gamebook designers today. Now I have printed off this sheet here so that I don't have to tick off the boxes in my beautiful, beautiful copy of the book and then go through and rub them out if I die. I've got this sheet and I can just record them all on that. Also on this sheet we've got code words, and code words are one of the other main ways that gamebooks, modern gamebooks, track whether the state of the game changes. So if, for example, let's say you meet an important character like a boss, a mob boss in a town, and you are given the option to do something which will get you on his good side or his bad side. If you end up on his good side, you might be given one code word. If you end up on his bad side, you're given another code word. And in other entries in the game where your standing with this character might affect the options provided to you, then those code words will be called on, and it might say, if you have code word abound, then go to this entry, and if you have code word avatar, go to this entry. The words themselves are completely random, all beginning with A, because this is the first book in the series. Here we've got the code words section. Above that we've got the beer notes section, rather intriguingly. Not really sure what's going to go there, obviously notes about beer. Then we've got the game sheet here, which is a little different to the one that I got off the website. The one I've got off the website is split over 2 pages, but presumably everything important is on there. Maybe there's some extra bits on my one there. So yeah, that's code words and tick boxes. Then we've got our map here of the area where the game takes place. I think it's sort of the area west of London. So I think a lot of the places, if not all of the places, I haven't really looked into it. Certainly the main places are real, because we've got London. We've got Maidenhead. This is the road to Oxford, the road to Henley. So yeah, it's, as it said on the back of the book, it's an alternative version of this part of England. Right, so we've got some abilities. We need to work out what our abilities are going to be, I suppose. Do we need to do that before we start? Find some stats? I think possibly the initial abilities that you have, the initial ability scores that you have, will be established in the early entries in the book. That's my suspicion. There's no setup here. There's nothing we need to do before we start. Alright, so we've got some other rules here about wounds and taking wounds leading to scars. It seems that maybe it's a little bit more difficult in this game to kill your character outright. Not really sure how that works. There's also some rules around your velo steam. This, I think, is your velo steam. It's like a steam-powered, funky motorcycle. Reputation, deeds, solidarity points, so some ways to track how you're interacting with the world, and maybe your rating with certain groups or people go up and down, and that will affect things as well. Alright, so I think probably we should just get started. That was a sufficient amount of pre-game waffle. And so I think, not that it says anywhere, the logical thing to do is to go to entry 1 and just crack on. So strap in. This is going to be a long series, but if this is the kind of thing that you like to watch, and I know there are some people out there who wanted me to cover more game books, here we go, folks. Here we go with Steam Highwayman. The tarmacadam of the midnight road glitters with dew and reflected moonlight. Over the hills you can see distant furnaces glowing, telegraph towers winking, and airships lumbering slowly across the sky, but here the woods are dark with secrets. The only light is the hard white beam thrown by the lime lantern of your velo steam. Somewhere in the night is your next target, a steam carriage carrying rich passengers in warmth and privilege, insulated from the struggles of their countrymen by ignorance and indulgence. Little do they expect the sudden and terrible attack of the Steam Highwayman. How did you come here? So we've got 4 options, and I think this is an opportunity to guide what sort of character you will be playing, the background of your character, and probably that's going to lead to some character creation stuff, I think. So our options are: how did you come here? My master was imprisoned for his inventions. Sounds cool. I fled servitude on a guild road train. An early death in the factories of London was to be my fate, or I am a disgraced and penniless heir. They all sound cool, but my instinct is that first one. I like the idea. That is the one that invokes the largest amount of intrigue in me. My master was imprisoned for his inventions. Who imprisoned him? What were his inventions? What was my role in his life? That one sounds cool. So we're going to turn to 585, and that's the option we are going to select. The road from Professor Benner's workshop has been long, lonely and dark. The constant beam of the velo steam's lantern has led you away from the screams of your adoptive family, away from the leaping flames that clothed the machine sheds, away from the dark figures who snatched your mentor into the night. You are not going back. The suddenness of the constable's raid took you all by surprise. He had spoken of the risks many times, but who expected airships, firebombs and kidnap? His inventions were too provocative, his politics too principled for the constables to allow him to continue working. You knew he had angered powerful rivals, but he was wrong to believe the law would protect him. It was the forces of the law who took him, and now you are cast loose on the road with only your wits, a vengeful hunger, and the fine Ferguson velo steam you had been repairing in the shop. Who knows whether rescue or revenge will be possible? You have heard that none other than Colonel Snappet of Danesfield House, the commander of the local constables, was responsible. A powerful man to have as an enemy. Okay, so we've got some character setup stuff here. You have in your possession a blunder pistol. I think that's accuracy 6. A sabre, PAR 6. Is that parry, I think? And a set of punch cards, Celador E. I've no idea what that means. Do we have a separate place for weapons? It doesn't look like it, so I guess I have to... so it says here, yeah, possessions for tools, weapons and large items. So you do have a limited number of slots. So I've popped those 3 items in this possessions section. And we've got our ability scores here. We're going to have 4 in ruthlessness. Let me just give you an overview as we're doing this of what each ability score represents. So ruthlessness, how threatening you seem both in appearance and reputation. So we have got a 4 in that. Engineering, your skill with pneumomechanics and steam machinery, a 6. So we're pretty good with machines. Makes sense because we were working with an inventor. Motoring, the knowledge of road law and the art of handling an engine, 4. Ingenuity, your mental ability to solve problems, 5. So not bad. And it looks like nimbleness is going to be lower for us. Your physical quickness and agility is only 3. And gallantry, the appeal of your manners, words and deeds, a mere 2. Let's just carry on to entry 324. And now you sit astride a fast machine, armed, ruthless, and shrouded in the dark like a bird of prey in its folded wings. Several wagons and engines pass on the road, but none presents you with a suitable target, until a private steam carriage with fashionable oriental styling makes its way up the slope. You stop a small distance down the road, and you can hear the plummy voice of the passenger berating his engineman. "Get that pressure up, Jackson. We should be in Slough by now. Slowly, I say, at the foot, and then full steam ahead at the crest." The fireman and driver dismount to check the engine chain. The rich young man, who must be their employer, gets out to look as well. "Out of the way, Harris. Look, you're running her on too little pressure. No wonder the driver's slack." The driver tugs at his forelock. "Begging your pardon, my lord, but the pressure's right where it should be for this un. She's new and—" The sound of an angry blow to the face rings through the wood. "How dare you, Jackson?" says my lord, his voice rising to a fervent pitch. "She's my engine, and I'll tell you how to drive her." It seems this son of privilege has not yet completed his education. You are perfectly placed to teach him a thing or two. All that remains is to choose the manner in which you will deal with him. You can use your natural ingenuity to try and fool him, your ruthlessness to terrify him, or you can attack him without warning and knock him down. So ingenuity and ruthlessness. Our ingenuity is 5, that's pretty decent, so we could try and fool him, or we could just launch in and attack him. Which one should we do? Okay, so I think that attacking someone at this point in the game might be a bad idea. I don't really know how good I am at doing that. But what I do know is that you need to use your nimbleness score during attacking, during fighting, and my nimbleness is quite low. So I suspect that my character my Steam Highwayman will be avoiding combat if at all possible. So probably we should try and fool him, because fooling a character takes ingenuity, and my ingenuity is quite high. So we're going to try and trick him. Turn to 195. You pull your cloak over your head and bend yourself over in mockery of an old beggar woman, and quickly grasp a few wet branches from the hedgerow. Then you hobble out into the road towards the tableau. "Oh, kind young sir, lend a poor widdy woman a cup of hot water." He turns on the spot. Make an ingenuity roll of difficulty 9 to take him off his guard. So I think making a roll means roll 2 dice, add on the relevant score, and if the score is greater than the difficulty, you have succeeded. So we're trying to get 10 or more from 2 dice plus 5. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So we have been successful. 7 to 9. The young man is bemused. "Hot water, old woman? At this time of night? Shouldn't you be in your cottage or something? Ow!" By the time he finishes his sentence, you have him in an arm lock with your blade at his throat. He quickly loses his arrogance and his bladder control. You take his purse, which contains £3 and 10 shillings, and leave him to try and regain his composure. Mission successful. £3 and 10 shillings. So let's have a look-see here. I think we've got a money section somewhere, haven't we? So £3, 10 shillings. So this old-fashioned British form of currency. Shillings is before my time, just. There's 10 shillings to the pound, and then confusingly 21 shillings to the guinea. So I don't know when you're going to talk about guineas. Oh, you can get bundles of guinea notes by the looks of things. Anyway, okay, that's how much money we've got. Ride away, 23. The lights of a nearby roadhouse draw you in, and soon you are seated in a warm nook, facing the fire, with a tankard of ale and a hearty meal in front of you. The wind and rain are forgotten, the risk and danger have passed, and your heart is beginning to beat at its proper pace. There is a sudden commotion at the door, and a too familiar figure limps in dramatically and falls in a chair. "House! House, I say! I've been robbed on the road. A posse of highwaymen. Must have been at least 4. Had to fight for my life. House! I thought this was a reputable place." Sit back into the shadows. 259. I think that's our first bit of full-page art there, although it's obviously referring to a different entry. The artist, by the way, is called Ben May. The landlord ushers the young gentleman into an inner room, and the inn servants are sent rushing for hot water, hot food, warmed wine, and every luxury that nobility demands. "You know something about it, I reckon," says a man, recognisable as the local miller from his flour dust covering. "What is it to you?" you ask belligerently. "Starving crows. I don't mind if you thieve off a knob or two. Maybe I would if I dared. I just want to know. What makes you do it?" So I can say the rich deserve punishment, or the poor need help. The poor need help makes it sound like I'm going to give some of my money away, but maybe I would get, beneficial favourability ratings in some way as a result of doing that. I'm going to go with the poor need help. 302. "You're right, the poor need help," replies the man. "A mate of mine makes 10 shillings a week on the freight wagons, if he's lucky. He's got a wife and 6 children to support out of that. Rent 2 shillings a week, and bread rising all the time. And you know who keeps the price of freight down? The Haulage Guild. If he makes more than 10 shillings, they lay him off for a week and employ some other poor beggar. No, They need help, it's true. Why? Father Bourdain at the church was a-preaching on it just the other day. He's no friend to the rich. Gave up a fat living to come and help the poor folk of Bourne End. Right, so we've got two options. Where can I meet this Father Bourdain? Or just say everyone has to help themselves. So I'm given an option here to sort of get a little bit meaner. So do I want to meet Father Bourdain? And maybe I do, but that seems a bit too obvious. I'm going to say everyone has to help themselves and see how that works out for us. Let's turn to 180. So it looks like that concluded our conversation with the miller, and we've been sort of kicked over to this general introductory paragraph for the inn, which feels a little bit jarring that we didn't say, the miller didn't say to us, "Oh, fair enough, I'll get back to my meal then." So yeah, a bit jarring, but here we are at the inn, and we've been through that encounter. The Crooked Billet is a small country inn, hidden well away from the noise and smoke of the steam revolution. No heavy freight wagons pass this way, nor the private steam carriages of the gentry, and the local folk are suspicious of outsiders. It is an ideal hideout. To take a room here, you will need to pay £2 and tick the box below. I'm not sure I need a room quite yet, and that would be most of my money, so we'll leave that. We can either study the map on the parlour wall or leave the inn. I don't see any harm in studying the map, so let's turn to 128 and do that. After studying the map for some time, you find several locations ideal for ambushing the carriages of the gentry. Wherever the main route passes through thick woods or up steep hills, drivers and wagoneers will be particularly vulnerable to gunfire or threats. At Cutthroat Wood, the road between Oxford and London has to climb out of loud water. Nearby woods offer you hiding places and getaway routes. Between Marlo and Maidenhead, the steep road at Inky Down Woods also looks promising, while the stretch of the Bath Road running through Maidenhead Thicket is sure to offer opportunities for an enterprising road pirate like yourself. Okay, so just a bit of information about the surrounding countryside that we can presumably move through. So I think the only option now, unless we want to take a room, is to leave the Crooked Billet. Turning to 291. We are midway along the dusty little thoroughfare known as Sheepridge Lane. This tiny road bypasses Bourne End entirely and runs between Flackwell Heath on the high ground and the Marlo Road beside the river. High hedgerows fringe the roadway, and nestled between the trees stands the Crooked Billet Inn. I might find that on the map just so we know approximately where we are. Sheepridge Lane, somewhere between Flackwell Heath on the high ground and the Marlo Road beside the river. Okay, so I've found Sheepridge Lane. That's here. And I think this building here must be the inn, the Crooked Billet Inn. So I think this little symbol here, this little sign symbol, is for inns. So we've got quite a few of those scattered around different locations on the map. So we could enter the Crooked Billet, which we don't need to do, ride towards Marlo, so that's going this way, head into Bourne End, that's some kind of small village or town here, or drive towards Flackwell Heath, which is up that way. So I think we'll go for one of the nearby locations, just to sort of stick in this area for the time being. Maybe we'll head into Flackwell Heath. So that involves turning to page 50. You steam through Flackwell Heath, its cottages strung out along the hilltop road. This place is known for its cattle breeding and its strong ale. So we could stop at the Three Horseshoes. We could head east towards Woodburn Green, north-east to Loudwater, head northwest to Winchbottom Lane, or ride down Sheepridge Lane, which is where we came from. Let's pop into the Three Horseshoes, eh? Why not? 228. The Three Horseshoes has a brick archway into a yard where most of the drinking and socialising is done. A pretty maid carries trays of beer and bar snacks out to the travellers and resting farmers. So I could buy a drink or leave the pub. I suppose I might as well buy a drink for 1 shilling. Takes us down to 9 shillings. 4.35 to buy a drink. The maid brings you a foam-topped mug of bubbly summer ale. It is cool and refreshing with a sweet malty foretaste and a rather floral finish, reminiscent of sunny days relaxing on grassy banks. I don't drink beer. I don't like the way it tastes, so any references to hoppy aftertastes and floral notes in this is going to go completely over my head. But that's a nice way of describing an ale. It sounds very pleasant, if only all beer didn't taste completely disgusting in my mind. She tells you that it is called Cottage Garden. So is this the collecting of beers? So I could note down Cottage Garden in my beer notes. Name of beer, location, notes. I think it probably is. I'm not sure I'm going to be keeping beer notes if there's no in-game purpose for it. While supping your drink, you make conversation with several of the locals. One tells you of his difficulty getting a licence to transport his prize bull up to London for showing. Another rails against Colonel Snappet of the Constables, who commandeered his traction engine and returned it damaged. Another long-faced man tells you about his bedridden mother, overworked in service her whole life long, and now unable to enjoy playing with her grandchildren. Who is she to anyone but an anonymous old bird, he asks rhetorically, though she was the beauty of the village once and had her own dreams. Alright, so we could go visit the old lady, or we could leave the Three Horseshoes. I suppose we might as well visit the old lady. I'm not really sure where this is going, but we've got the option to visit her, so let's visit her. 784. I'd like to visit her, you say, startling the long-faced man. Who? My gran? Well, she might be glad of a fresh face, but she might be more glad of a wholesome diet. The drinker doesn't come himself, but gives you directions to a cottage in the village where you find an old woman listening to a boy trying to read her the newspaper. Who are you, dearie? She asks. Another fellow from the officers come to make me tell what I don't know. She is both suspicious and hostile. Okay. Read her the newspaper, offer her a melon, offer her a pineapple, offer her some tinned fruit. I don't have any of those things. That's a shame, so I guess I can't do those things. I'm assuming the words in brackets are items that we must have. Yeah, I don't think there's any indication in the rules that that is the case, but I guess it's obvious. We can't do those things. So we could read her the newspaper, and I suspect come back another day when we've got something tasty. 954. You take over from the boy who looks heartily relieved to be able to scamper outside into the sun with his playmates. You can't tell what the woman understands of the stories of royal scandals, the update from the Galician front, the reports of unrest in Cornwall and airship piracy over the Schwarzwald. But when you read about the Van Diemen's land colony, she begins to weep. My Andrew was transported, you know, for stealing a silver spoon. Stealing a silver spoon from the house of Mistress Marchpane in London. Sent over the sea, and I ain't never seen him. She continues down a habitual rehearsal of her sorrows and her loneliness. After an hour or so of keeping her company, you have little left to offer her. Leave the cottage. Back to 50. Alright, so I guess if I come back with some food, we can find out something different. So I guess that is it for Flackwell Heath. So we go east to Woburn Green, up that way. Northeast to Loudwater. Can't quite see Loudwater on there. Never mind, doesn't really matter. Northwest towards Winchbottom Lane. I guess that's... oh yeah, up that way. Yeah, should we do that? We'll go northwest towards Winchbottom Lane, so that's number 11. Winchbottom Lane runs down the bottom of one of the steep, enclosed Chiltern valleys that are so common around here. An isolated barn stands here at a junction, and up on the hillside to the west stands hard-to-find farm. So we can visit the farm or carry on. I think we're going to visit the farm, aren't we? 714. The track to hard-to-find farm is unmarked, unsurprisingly, and straggles along the crest towards the farm. Dogs bark as you ride up in recognition or alarm. If you have an initialed purse, go there. We don't. If you are the friend of Mr. Hibbert, go there. We are not, otherwise 11. Is that back where we came? It is, isn't it? Okay. Alright, so we're back out onto the road because we actually had no reason to go there, I guess. So let's carry on. Take the road east. Well, that's the way we came, isn't it? Yes. So we'll take the road southwest, 465. You are riding along Winchbottom Lane, out of sight of the busy freightways, hidden behind the hills and the thick boughs of Horton Wood to the south. So we could go up the hill to Handy Cross, uphill and east to Wickham, or into Horton Wood. I think we're going to end up going into the wood. Horton Wood. Okay, so we can carry on towards Handy Cross, or back the way we came, essentially, I suppose, or into Horton Wood. I'm going to go into Horton Wood. 106. The dusty lane falls quiet as you ride into Horton Wood. No birdsong, no steam engines other than the finely tuned whir of your own brass and iron wonder. Roll a dice to see what you encounter. Alright. 2. A historical archaeologist. Deep in the wood you come across a little old man in a shapeless hat, a mossy green suit and a bright pink scarf. His white beard gives him a rather mischievous, gnome-like appearance. You ask what he is doing in the woods. I'm measuring these hazel coppices, he replies. Very difficult to age hazel coppices. Now, if it were hornbeam, like over there, or even ash, I'd have a clue. I think a coppice is a tree which is kept short by cutting it back on regular occasions. I might be wrong, but I think that is the case. That is Lone Adventurer's tree fact for the day. He is a professor of trees studying woodland and its history. Important fuel source, I'd say, all these woods around here. Charcoal, of course, and more. He fixes you with a beady eye. I love really old trees. Do you know of any I can study? If you have the code word anthill, turn to 818. I do not. Otherwise you must leave the old man to his measuring and pottering and ride further into the wood. Turn to 190. The trees of Horton Wood block out any sound. Once you quieten your velo steam, it is silent beneath the boughs. Oh, okay, so we're now leaving the woods. That was it for the woods. So we can ride south out of the wood, 602, or ride north to Winchbottom Lane. That's the way we came, isn't it? Yeah, we don't want to go back that way. We'll go south. South out of the woods, 602. Halfway between Bourne End and Marlo stands the village of Little Marlo. The low thatched roofs of the cottages are in poor condition, green with moss and damp, and the squat church looks unloved, its graveyard overgrown and overcrowded. Lowering over them stands the grey mass of the Marlo workhouse. So we could head to the workhouse, or we could take the road one way or t'other way, or up or down. But yeah, the workhouse is the option here. So I suppose we'll check out the workhouse. 3, 2, 1. The workhouse stands on the outskirts of Little Marlo behind a tall brick wall. It is a bleak place where poor people in plain clothes sit around, the children picking oakum apart into shreds. Not really sure what oakum is. The women segregated into their own part of the yard, toiling at vats of laundry. The men, all unqualified for work in some way, knocking stones into gravel for the roads. Visitors are not welcome unless they bring a donation. Okay, we might as well make a donation, see what there is to see here. So that is 2 shillings. So we can turn to 182. The fat beadle, is that a person? Looks you over as you make your donation. Never fear, he says. 100% of your donation will go towards the running of the workhouse. These poor wretches will all benefit, directly or indirectly, from your generosity. He licks his lips. As you look around, you see many children, both boys and girls, born into a life of servitude and confinement. Their clothes are rough, ragged and plain. Their hair is lank, their skin pale and their eyes dim. Sponsors, says the beadle loudly. What they need are sponsors. I can find good apprenticeships for these young people, but they must have a sponsor. The apprentice price varies for each trade, but it is generally in the region of £5. And then the workhouse must also be remunerated. But once that is paid, they are free to spread their wings and to earn their way through the world, rather than depending on the charity of their betters. Well, I find him a bit suspicious. I think even if I had £5, I'd be hesitant about sponsoring an apprenticeship. He seems very suspect. But I don't have £5 anyway, so I'm going to leave the workhouse, going back to 602. Right, so we can take the road down towards Marlo. I think I've seen that you can get an extra map that is separate from the book. That's big and nice. I think that would be quite handy. Take the road down towards Marlo. Travel on towards Bourne End. That's back that way. Have we been to Bourne End? I feel like we might have done. Is that where we started? No, we started up there, didn't we? Riding to Handy Cross. That's up that way. Or turn up into Horton Wood, which is where we came from. Let's go into Marlo, shall we? We'll go into Marlo, which looks like it might be one of the larger towns in this book. So let's do that. Actually, I'll tell you what. I think we'll stop there. We'll turn towards Marlo, which is entry 18. The road slopes gently down to Marlo. You pass some large iron tanks being refilled from a massive water bowser, almost blocking the road. Then a gang of navvies are digging a trench along the street, laying a new sewer pipe. If you are wanted by the constables, turn to 132 immediately. I am not. Otherwise, continue into Marlo, turn to page 4. Yeah, there we go. In Marlo, we've got a bunch of different things we can do and options. I think we'll stop there. I'm pretty sure this video has gone on for a little while, but that's okay. Like I said, these ones are going to be a little bit longer than my normal videos, just to give me an opportunity to get into the game. But there you go. That's going to be it for now. That's our first adventure into Steam Highwayman. Let me know what you think. Is this your kind of thing? Have you played this game? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you very much for watching, folks. Catch you in the next one. Bye for now.